You're listening to the Maritime Gardening Podcast brought to you by Vesey's Seeds. And today we've got Ken Johnson here from Illinois University to talk about invasive weeds. A little more complicated than that, but we'll get into it as we go along. Who is Ken Johnson? He's a horticulture educator with the University of Illinois Extension. He's got a bachelor's degree in biology from Illinois College. He's got a doctorate in plant medicine from the University of Florida. He focuses on fruit and vegetable production, pest management, and beneficial insects. And he's one of the authors of the Good Growing blog and one of the Good Growing podcast hosts, which is a fantastic podcast I've been listening to recently. I really enjoy it. Great rapport you've got with your co-host there. Ken, say hello.
Thank you. Your check's in the mail for that.
Oh, it is a good podcast. I was listening to it this week, actually. I said I should listen to some of these guys. This is very nice. I mean, I think this is the challenge for me. I don't have a wingman, right? And it really does. I mean, I usually have guests, but it is nice having someone to just bounce ideas off, you know? So yeah, we're going to talk about, I thought the first thing that made sense, and you've got talks on this, so I mean, I'll put links to Ken's podcast, but also like specific discussions he's done on this very topic. And I'm taking him a little outside of his comfort zone because we're going to do some definitions, but then we're going to get into some irritating garden weeds. I have a list of things, but of course, I fully encourage you, Ken, to mention anything you can talk about. But the fun part is talking about this terminology, invasive weeds. We use this term a lot, but a lot of us don't really know what we mean when we're saying it. And actually, there's a number of different categories of types of weeds or types of plants. And invasive is just one of them. Ken, can you clarify some of this stuff for us?
Yeah, so a lot of the terminology is sometimes used interchangeably or incorrectly at times. So I think you start off with native. So native is a plant that is native to a specific area. Here in North America, usually designated as when European settlers came to North America and started doing scientific collection. It's kind of how we define what native is. So it's at the time scientific collection began, that plant was growing there is more or less the definition a lot of places use.
Right.
Then we can kind of go to non-native. So this is a species that does not naturally occur in a specified area. So whether that is introduced from a different country, like here in Illinois, bald cypress. This is a deciduous needle tree. It is native to very far southern Illinois, but it can grow throughout the state. So it has been transplanted, moved by humans throughout the state. So in most of the state, it is a non-native plant. Just a very small portion of southern Illinois where it would be native.
Right.
So it's not necessarily coming from other countries. It can come from within the same country or same state or province, what have you.
And many of the vegetables we enjoy that we grow are non-native, I assume.
Yeah, majority of them would be, even
For us here in this
yeah,
place. Yes,
yeah. I
yes,
mean, even corn is native to, originated in Mexico.
yes,
Potatoes, tomatoes, those are originated in South America.
yeah.
So they're native to this hemisphere, but not to the United States or Canada in a lot of cases. So that's one thing people say, oh, we should only be growing native. Well, we can't really do that
We
for a
starve.
lot of our food crops.
Exactly.
We'd have a lot less interesting diet, if
Yes.
nothing else. Or
I've
we'd
eaten
be growing
pine.
stuff that we're not familiar with.
I've eaten pine cones. So this my backyard. That's one of the main things that grows well. Spruce needles and pine cones. Yeah.
Yeah. And then with like our non-native, we get introduced would be another term. So this is just a species that's brought into a new area, either intentionally or unintentionally. So again, our vegetable crops, most of our vegetable crops, a lot of those are Mediterranean in origin. A lot of the cool crops, crucifers, whatever you want to call them, peonies. The peonies that we typically are growing are native to Asia. We do have some species native to the western U.S. and probably up into Canada as well, potentially. But those are not the ornamental types that we grow. They're not as showy. Chickens would be another example. I mean, they're native to Southeast Asia. So they were introduced intentionally by humans.
Right.
And then we can get into invasive. So this is typically defined as it's going to be a non-native species that is brought into an area that is causing some kind of damage to the ecosystem. usually considerable damage to that. So we can't have non-native plants. They don't really cause any problems. But then when they start causing problems, economic to the ecosystems, to the natural areas and stuff, then we start getting into the invasive stuff. And in the U.S., there's a specific definition that was by executive order in 1999 that kind of defines that for the United States and stuff. And then we go a little bit further. A lot of times we talk about when people talk about native plants, talk about all this native plants invasive. Well, technically, it can't be invasive because it's native to an area. An invasive plant is a non-native plant that's causing harm. So those native plants that are causing problems, we define those as aggressive or maybe a nuisance species or something like that. Because if we're going to, technically by the definitions that have been laid out, a native plant can't be an invasive.
Right. So you can have a native plant that's aggressive. Um, and you can have a non-native plant that's not invasive, like tulips or something like that.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
so and what makes it invasive? That it's growing in places you don't want it to grow, and
it's
increasingly
kind of
ever so more.
yeah, usually causing harm to the ecosystem in some way. Outcompeting native plants, pushing them out
Right.
is typically how we would look at that.
I see. And so an aggressive, I mean, the distinction between aggressive, so an invasive plant is a non-native aggressive plant, and an aggressive plant is just, can you have a non-native plant that's aggressive but not invasive? Is that possible?
Yeah, I think you could go so in some places, an invasive species has to be like designated by
I
the
see.
government as so like here in Illinois we have like the noxious weed law and stuff and those weeds by law have to be controlled. So if you have those in on your property, you are required by law to get rid of those. We have
Mm,
the Exotic Weed Act, and these would be more the invasive species. So if you have them on your property, you don't have to control them, but it is illegal to buy, sell, move these intentionally, unless you have a permit to do so.
interesting. So you are required by law to remove invasive plants from your property,
Particular one. So in Illinois, so the
particular
noxious
ones.
weeds would be common ragweed, giant ragweed. If that's within the city limits, like if you're out in the country, it doesn't matter. But within city limits, those are required by law. And I'd say this is probably not the most enforced law in the state, at least for Illinois. Other states are going to be different. Um, Marijuana is considered noxious weed. Musk and Canada thistle, kudzu, sow thistle, and then some stuff like Johnson grass. Some of those sorghum species
I
are
see.
considered noxious weeds in Illinois.
I see. So it's not about, so it's more like they're a risk to public health. Is that it?
Yeah, public health or something like the Johnson grass will be agriculture that cause problems. Corn and beans are the primary crops around in Illinois. They can cause issues
I see.
with
Like,
that. And then things like multiflora rose,
mm,
some of the bittersweets, bunch of different buckthorns, the bush honeysuckles. Those are being considered invasive. So we can't sell those, you can't move them, but you're not required to get rid of
right,
those. Something like calorie pear is not on the exotic weed list in Illinois, so you can still um, sell those, buy those. In
right,
Illinois, we know that it's for all intents and purposes, it's invasive. It's spreading all over the place in natural areas, but it is not designated by law as invasive in Illinois, so you can
right.
still move it. So, well, at extension, we would call it a species of concern because it's
That's
not
right.
a listed invasive species.
That's interesting though. We wouldn't have any rule like that here. Like your neighbors might get on your case. Like if you planted something like if you decided I would like a Japanese knotweed hedge on my front lawn, I think you probably have some serious problems with your neighbors. Um,
Mhm.
but like there's nothing saying you can't do that, even though that could destroy your neighborhood, you know. So, um, anyway, so I thought what would be fun would be to just go through some very common garden weeds, especially ones that, I mean, I mean, for any kind of garden, most of my content is focused on vegetable gardens, things that compromise your vegetable garden. Of course, these things would also be a problem in agriculture, I'm sure, and could also be a problem in a ornamental garden. But growing vegetables is different than, you're not going to grow. There's no vegetable, there's no ornamental you grow like carrots in rows
Hmm.
where you get a rectangle with, and trying to get as many carrots out of the rectangle as possible. There's no flower anybody grows like that in their backyard. To some extent, it's ornamental gardens are, I would argue, easier to control weeds in than a vegetable garden because you don't have things planted in rows 3 inches apart, and you're not trying to achieve a yield and so on and so forth. But I suppose that's a separate conversation. So um, I'm sure there's some ornamental gardeners that would disagree with me. Um, but yeah, I thought we could go through it. Since you mentioned it anyway, why don't we just start with multiflora rose? That is everywhere here in Nova Scotia. I remember a year ago, I was fishing in the middle of nowhere. I mean,
Just
I
popping
mean,
up.
in Nova Scotia, it's a small province, but we have a small population. So there's all kinds of nowhere type places you can go to where you don't see anybody and it looks almost identical to what it would have looked like 2,000 years ago, except that you might find some multiflora rose. I was like in a river in a part, I'd waded out to like an island on a river and there was a multiflora rose growing there. So why don't you explain to the viewers what this is?
Yeah, so this is species native to Asia, I believe, and this was used as an ornamental. And I think at one time it was promoted um, to be grown for like soil stabilization and stuff like that. So it was intentionally, and it's one of those things that escaped cultivation. We didn't realize how bad it was going to be when we started planting it, because this was 100 or so years ago. Nowadays we're a little more careful when we're importing stuff, but it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. I mean, so they can, birds will eat the berries, the fruit, the hips on them. They'll deposit those, which is why you got them showing up in random places because the birds will fly and disperse those seeds as they're flying and stuff. So, and then you can get these big hedges, these really spiny, prickly plants. And again, they outcompete our native species in different areas and stuff.
Yeah, describe the. I mean, it doesn't have a typical rose, like not a pretty pink rose, or it's got it's got these little tiny white. They almost look like strawberry flowers, like, but they're in a cluster, right? I don't know what the best way to
Mm.
describe and that beautiful smell. Nice, I used to have a property, my first house, and it backed onto a set of apartment complexes, and people were always cutting across my lawn. And I decided to be the grumpy old man, even though I was a young man then. I was in my 30s. Um, but I noticed that there was some of these wild, I didn't even know they were roses. I thought they were thorn bushes because multiflora rose has the most incredibly amazing, they're like barbed wire. Um,
Mhm.
so I saw them growing in a path near where I live, and contrary to your state laws, I cut a whole bunch of sticks the same way you'd propagate willow. And I just stuck them in the ground every 6 inches all the way along my property. And some of them took and some of them didn't. But about 3 years after that, or 4 years, or, we lived there for 7 years. And by the time I left, I had like a 7 foot high wall of thorns and roses, and no one cut through my lawn. But for about 2 weeks every year, it would smell beautiful, right? Because they do have a nice smell. They smell like kind of
Mhm.
like my grandmother's skin cream, that sort of thing, like lady's perfume or something. Uh, but yeah, so that's one that, at least from what I've seen, it has this way of propagating it. I mean, the seeds propagate, but it'll grow up really high and it'll tip over. And where that branch touches the ground, it starts a new plant. So it walks.
Yeah, it'll root itself.
Yeah, it's got like 10 different ways. It'll also sort of come up out of the ground, like it's
Yeah,
just
the rhizome stuff. Yeah, and a lot of these
yeah.
plants, we're planting them, we're using them as ground covers or soil stabilization because we're growing them because they'll grow quickly, they'll spread out, cover a lot of area. They can grow in poor soils. I mean, when you think about that, that's kind of the perfect mix for so a plant that's potentially going to be problematic. I mean, kudzu is the same way as an ornamental, or used as soil stabilization, again promoted in the U.S. By the federal government and stuff, and then it's gone crazy. If you've ever been down to the southern United States, you've got whole driving down interstates, you got whole hillsides and stuff. They're nothing but kudzu. Trees are completely covered and stuff like that.
Oh, is kudzu like a vine? I don't even know what that is. Is it
Yeah,
like a creeping
it's a
vine?
vining plant. It'll grow up
Uh,
trees and stuff. Yeah, entire roadsides, hillsides and stuff, completely covered.
is it
Call it
symbiotic
call it
with the trees, or is
the
is
vine
it
that ate the South is what they call it a lot of times.
okay?
So
Is it in symbiotic in any way, or is it just crowd
it's
out and
just
shade out and
yeah,
kill?
it's growing up. Yeah, crowd them out, shade them. It's not like um, something like Virginia creeper. I don't know if you have that up there, but it's a native vine. It'll grow up, but it's not covering the canopy like a kudzu would, so it's not as problematic. A winter creeper would be another one, another ornamental ground cover
Right,
that has escaped. That'll grow up trees and cover them and block photosynthesis, and
right.
as it's growing on the ground, outcompete other plant species and stuff.
So for listeners that watch my garden tours, um, multiflora rose is one plant that I do. You know, I got a fence around my garden and a sort of field around the fence and a forest around the field. If I say field, I mean like 10 feet of scrub. Anyway, multiflora rose is one of the things I have creeping in under the fence, trying to destroy all my hard work. Another one is bindweed. So is bindweed non-native, native? How do you classify bindweed?
Yeah, so this would be another non-native. It's native to Eurasia, Europe, and Asia, and I'm not sure how if this was intentionally or unintentionally brought in. But yeah, it's another one that'll kind of grow over stuff um, and cause problems. Unlike here in Illinois, we have a somewhat similar called honeyvine milkweed, which is a native plant. It looks similar, kind of does the same thing, um, but it's native, so it's we wouldn't consider that
Right,
invasive, unlike bindweeds, which are Eurasian.
right. Yeah, bindweed's a deceptive one because it's got pretty leaves. It makes pretty pink white flowers, at least mine does. It climbs up your fence, so it's kind of making things beautiful in a sense. So if you're a new gardener and you don't know what it is, you're kind of a bit of a nature lover, you know, oh, I love nature. Nature knows nature's my friend. You, like me, might let that just grow and think it's nice. But it's not going to, it's another one of those plants where it creeps along the ground, but it also sends out these rhizomes underground, long, white, you know, thick rhizomes. So yeah, it'll climb up your plants. You're trying to grow corn or beans or whatever, and it climbs up them and competes for nutrients, and it's not the greatest thing. Uh, I don't know if
Yeah,
you want to.
I think it's related to morning glories.
It looks
So it
like a
looks
morning glory. You might
so
even
and
think it
even
is
morning
one.
glories can be problematic. I mean, there are some native morning glory species, but they're still. My wife wanted to plant them one year. I was like, no, we're not doing that because I don't want to deal with them for the next several years as they come up. And
Yeah, I don't know if we want to discuss how to remediate these things. Maybe that's beyond the scope of today's. Uh, Other than just say, for all the things we're discussing, you might. So just before I think the solutions would be different for each one of these. But yeah, I think if you want a successful vegetable garden, kill, smother, destroy on site for everything we're about to discuss. Would you agree?
yeah, a lot of hand pulling.
Hand pulling in.
Depending on where they're at, herbicides
Yeah.
uh, could be could be an option again, depending on how close they are to your plants. And if you can put that down safely as smother. But if you're just hand weeding or cutting back, just basically if you keep pulling, cutting back, eventually, hopefully, maybe you'll exhaust. Maybe
You
they've got
exhaust the root
rhizomes stuff that
system.
exhaust that root system, but you're gonna have to keep up with it. You pull it once, they'll be back. It'll be a
Yes.
continuous thing.
Yes, exactly. It's not like pulling I don't know. Yeah, some plants you pull them, problem solved. It's not like that. Like the
Hmm.
one I get, I have dock, like curly dock, that plant. It's
Hmm.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So it's got a big root and all that sort of stuff. But if you pull it out, it's gone. There might still be 1,000 seeds in the ground, uh, but that plant, if only everything could grow like that. It grows so fast and so aggressively, and it's kind of, if only if they could make a version of it's a little more edible. I mean, you can eat the leaves, but if only they could make like one that tastes like spinach. It would be a fantastic
There's,
plant to have.
there's a
Um,
project for you. Start
yeah.
breeding it.
So you're talking about your wife's morning glory. We might as well talk about another plant that some people want to put in their garden, which is mint. Um, so would you call that an aggressive plant, or
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
invasive
Usually,
in a sense?
yeah, when I'm doing gardening presentations, if we talk about growing mint, it's grow it in a container,
Yes,
or grow it in an area where it's going to be contained in a raised bed, something like that. Because you only plant it in the ground once, um,
yes,
and you will you will learn from your mistake. And depending on, so I think it was a peppermint or spearmint is from Europe. Peppermint is a hybrid of two European species. So the ones we're using as a like a culinary are European. We do have native mint species in North America, but the ones we're typically growing to eat, I believe, are European. So they would be an introduced.
I see. Yeah, I remember fishing once on a river and there was mint all along the bank. And I often wonder, like, does someone upstream have mint and these are flowers that got into the water, or was there some growing on a bank and they broke off and they just
Hmm.
like I walked for kilometers down this river and I kept finding mint growing on the bank, and I've never seen that anywhere here. So it's a unique case, and I'm sure that mint's still there. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, and like here in Illinois, it wouldn't be really considered invasive because typically we don't have, at least that I'm aware of, we don't have any areas where it's these large patches that are causing
Yes.
kind of economic harm. It's more would be a more of an aggressive
Yeah.
nuisance type.
Do not want it in your vegetable garden. Uh, Unless you really like it, you don't like anything else.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So there's one here I want to discuss that you said you don't have in Illinois, which is Coltsfoot. Have you heard of Coltsfoot? You know what that is?
No, that was one when you sent me the plants I had to look up. So yeah,
Okay.
at least where I'm at in Illinois, I have not seen it. I think if I remember right, I think it's more in the Northeast U.S. It hasn't necessarily made it
I see.
all the way over to this part of the Midwest.
Wonder if it doesn't like, I mean, Illinois gets cold in the winter. It's not like you don't have harsh, like I always think of the States as like, United States is like warm and Canada's cold, but I mean, there's certain parts of the United States are certainly cold. I mean, I'm in Nova Scotia. We're in one of the warmer places in Canada, all things being, I mean, we have a nice sort of temperate summer, but in the winter, it's kind of bleak and dark and dreary and gray and miserable, but it's temperature wise, it's not cold. It just feels cold.
Mhm.
It's always so damp. But yeah, Coltsfoot is another one I have in my garden, and I don't have it in my garden. It's on the edge. So there's like a little patch near the entrance to my garden that I've been controlling for years. I've never gotten rid of it. But it's another one of those ones that travels underground and it makes flowers. And so the flowers, it creeps, it rhizomes underground, and the flowers, and it's one of the first flowers to appear because it flowers before it even sends out leaves. So it's a very kind of smart plant.
Mhm.
It's like one of the first things. I'm sure it's well pollinated because it's one of the only flowers out there first. Um, and then it puts up leaves, and the leaves can get almost the size of like they look like a novice might think they're rhubarb. I mean, a lot of the leaves can be the size of the palm of your hand, but I've seen leaves the size of my head, and it has a rhubarb leaf type shape. And they'll grow on the side of, like, on our street here, we've got paved road and gravel on the gravel ditches, and the Coltsfoot loves gravel. You know, it might as well be fertilizer. It loves gravel, grows anywhere, huge root systems. Uh, Anyway, yes, that is definitely something you do not want in your garden. I don't know if it's native or I don't know where they're from.
So I looked up. They're was it Northern Europe and Asia?
Northern
So it
Europe.
would not be a
All
so
right.
another introduced, and yeah, depending on how problematic it is, would be could be invasive.
Oh, you don't want it. If your neighbor's lawn was overrun with it, you would be very concerned for your own lawn. Um, okay, well, here's one. If I have this on my lawn, I don't know, but I do have it in my garden, and I've got my suspicions why. But vetch. So I assume you have vetch in Illinois,
Yeah. So yeah, depending on there's I think there's multiple different types. So like
right?
here, like um, crown vetch would be one that is sold as an ornamental
Really?
and stuff sometimes. Yeah, the vetches are you're again Europe, Asia, Africa, sometimes depending on the type. And so like for crown vetch, that'll again it's got rhizomes, so it's spreading underground, can spread rapidly, can grow 10+ feet in a year, um, and stuff. So again, I I don't know if it's how commonly it still is, but you used to be able to purchase that.
Why would anybody plant that? I mean, I have it in my garden. I'm sure I got it from horse manure, like, because it's a pasture plant, I
Mhm.
assume. And it's probably good for pastures because I think it's nitrogen fixing. It's got that it's got that look. It's got the look of a nitrogen fixing plant. I may have read that somewhere. Um, but I mean, from a garden point of view, it just grows so fast and so aggressively and everywhere. And I got in my garden a number of years ago, and I can't get it out. It's just something I mean, people see my garden, I do garden tours, and everything looks well managed. But I guarantee you, days before I film, I'm ripping that stuff out and cursing under
Frantically.
my breath. Yeah, so I mean, I'll try. There's times when I try to get down and get the rhizomes out and pull it out slowly. And there's times where I'm just trying to keep it lower than if I got foliage, I want it below the foliage so that it's not shading anything. And so as the season goes on and it gets hotter outside and the horse flies and the deer flies show up and my energy for, being having a perfect garden starts to go down. I'm just removing it. I'm not giving it. I'm trying to help the plants I want to win, and I'm trying to help. I can't defeat it, but I'm just having it lose. You know, it's winning the war, but I'm winning the battles. You know,
Yeah, knock it back as you can.
knock it back in.
And then like something like a hairy vetch, that's commonly used as a cover crop.
Right.
At least right here, that's promoted by um, Natural Resource Conservation Service here in the U.S. So that's
Wow.
commonly used as a cover crop. It'll survive the winter. It'll come up, and again, like you said, it's a nitrogen fixing plant. So with that, you'd be terminating it though, typically with an herbicide.
They
You
herbicide it.
terminate that,
Yeah.
or
Okay.
you till it in, something like that, and let
How
that
would you
sit
prevent the
and break
little
down.
pieces of rhizome? You tell it in at just the right time, like December or something, or like,
So I'm usually doing it in the spring,
right,
and I'm not sure if hairy vetch how aggressive it is
right.
compared to some of the others.
Yeah. I've got zombie vetch. I don't know what the variety is. Okay, here's another one. I spelt it wrong here. Anyway, horsetail. Horsetail is yeah, it grows everywhere in my neighborhood. I thankfully do not have it in my garden, although I did have a patch of it once and I eradicated it aggressively with cardboard. Um, so the horsetail is an interesting plant. Why don't you tell us a little bit about horsetail? Is that native or is it non-native?
Yeah, so horsetail. So we compared notes beforehand to make sure we're talking about the same plants.
Yes.
So equisetum would be another name, a scouring rush. It's not a rush, but so it's got a lot of silica in the stem, so it's kind of a rough. So settlers used to use it to wash pans and stuff like that because it's kind of got this rigid stem to it. But it's native to North America and into Europe, so it would be a native species.
Hmm.
It likes it's like more shady conditions a lot of times. Typically moist soils is what it's looking for. Um, it can be one that's hard to control though. So I've actually got some that I'm growing as an ornamental. I've got a pond liner that I just filled with soil and planted it in there to try to keep it contained. And so far, I've had it for um, it's been there for about 3 years now, and it has not moved outside of that pond liner
Right.
yet. So hopefully it stays that way. But like when I was growing up, it was like the grade school I went to. There were some train tracks behind the school, and all along that embankment there was nothing but Horsetail, equisetum. So like in the baseball fields were back there. So when you play little league baseball, you'd go back and those would be all over the place. So that's
Yeah.
a little bit of nostalgia for me growing that.
Yeah, it seems to like, I mean, like on my street, if we take a walk, it's a big loop, 3 kilometer loop. And there's horsetail growing. It seems to like gravel edges. So, I mean, there's like a ditch, likes water, and it likes gravel edges and that sort of thing. It doesn't seem to go into take over the lawns or the grasses. It seems to stop, there. You were saying something earlier that it's kind of the only plant of its kind or something like that. What do you mean?
Yeah, so this is an ancient lineage of plants, so it's been around for millions and millions of years. And if I remember correctly, I think this is the only species left in that genus, if not that entire family. So it's kind of like ginkgo. It's one of those ancient plants that's still used to be much more diverse, back millions of years ago, but it's kind of the only representative of that nowadays.
Oh, so like this was here, it survived the dinosaurs, cataclysm, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
I see. Yeah. That's neat. Okay, now here's one everybody hates, and I've done videos on goutweed. Not only that, but I was driving home from work the other day. There's a local, what would you call that? Like a green area. It's like a forest that people go hiking in and walk their dogs in and stuff like that. Just trails through a forest. And I noticed there's just goutweed everywhere, all over the ground. I don't know how it got there. Um, so, and that's one of these ones too that there's varieties of this that people actually plant ornamentally, which is
Hmm.
the worst thing you could ever do, worse than mint. Um, so yeah, tell us a little bit about goutweed.
Yeah, so it's another one in Europe and Asia.
Another
That's
one.
native to, again, like you said, sold ornamentally. I think it was first brought into probably the U.S., Canada, the mid 1800s again as an ornamental. Still sold ornamental. There's kind of the green version and there's a variegated
Yes.
type as well that people plant. From what I've read, that a lot of times that the variegated eventually will revert back a lot of times to the green form. It's
Mm,
another one. It's grown as a ground cover, so it's spreading by rhizomes, fills in quickly. Again, a good indication that it could be problematic, and it has become problematic because it will spread by rhizomes. And then that's one of those that if you pull it out and you leave fragments behind, those fragments can send up new plants and stuff. So if you are pulling it, you've got to do a good job of getting as much of that rhizome as you possibly can out of the soil. And that's another one you just got to keep pulling it, and hopefully eventually um, you'll exhaust it, if you don't want to go that herbicide route.
yeah. Yeah, I years ago I got rhubarb from a guy on Kijiji. You guys have Kijiji? It's like before there was Facebook Marketplace, there was Kijiji or Craigslist or that sort of thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, so I was a guy in the city and I got some rhubarb and I planted it. And then I noticed there was a stuff growing with the rhubarb and I didn't know what it was. And I probably let it go for an entire season or something like that. And maybe someone was visiting me and like, you got goutweed, man. I'm like, well, so what? What's the big deal? And they're like, that's the worst thing in the world, sort of thing. You got to get that out of there. Um, so uh, people that watch my garden tour, I got a big patch of rhubarb that had goutweed in it, and uh, I just pulled it every time for an entire season. Every time I was in the garden, I pulled everything I could see aggressively. I was down on my hands and knees. I didn't have a lot of rhubarb then, like it hadn't filled out, right? So,
Hmm.
and it never came back. I got it. I got it all. I just kept. I must have just exhausted all of the energy in the rhizomes or something like that. It vanished from there. And there's another spot on my property. All I did, and I've got videos, where I put like I would get bags of leaves from people's driveways on garbage day, and I just put the bag over the goutweed and put the leaves on top of the bag. Um, and then so I do that sort of thing in April, and then maybe in July I do it again, right? Just keep smothering and smothering.
Hmm.
That one was eradicated. I had another patch much bigger patch that I didn't notice till it was maybe 4 feet in diameter, right? These other ones were smaller, just a foot and a half. And I spent 2 seasons treating it just with those bags of leaves. And I noticed I'd forgotten about it. And I noticed this year it all came back. I got an area about 6 feet wide by about 4 feet of the scoutweed. So I was just out recently smothering it again, and I'm gonna just have to stay on it. So yeah, it's very, very hard to control. And in the city, in Halifax, near where I live, a lot of people have it. I have friends that it's like they really want to have a garden, but it's like the ground is
Is.
goutweed.
Mhm.
It's more goutweed than ground, you know. So I don't know what. I mean, they would just have to smother their entire lawn aggressively, with like tarps or something. Like I don't know how
Yeah.
long. It would be great for every one of these. It would be great to know how long the rhizome can persist. Like well, if you smother it for one season, is that enough, or does it need two, or does it like Japanese knotweed, which is the next thing on our list. This is one of those ones that how did that ever explain what for those that don't know. Some people don't know what's Japanese. We have it all over the place where I live. There's a patch of it I drive by on my way home every day. Do you guys have it? Japanese knotweed?
We do. It's becoming more of an issue. So it is considered an invasive species in Illinois. Where I'm at, we don't have a whole lot of it. It's more, in Illinois, we see it more in kind of forested areas.
Really?
It's more of an issue there, and probably Chicagoland area, just because you've got all kinds of people that are moving plant material around. I'm more in more of a rural area. But it's another one. Name implies it's native to Asia. Again, I think there's another one that's brought in as an ornamental and erosion control as well. And then, like several of these others, has escaped um, and it has started spreading and aggressively spreading into natural areas and causing problems.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I thought it was bamboo because it has a bamboo look. It's got hollow sections. It can grow like 5, 6 feet high. It grows in these huge, just like bamboo, it grows in these big clusters.
Hmm.
Um, and the roots are huge and heavy. Like, I guess the roots are like if you've ever pulled a rhubarb out, it's an enormous chunk of wood sort of thing. The roots are like that, so it's really hard to get all the roots out. Um, it would be, I thankfully do not have it anywhere on my property. There's a property on the way home where there's a forest of it on the side of the road. Um, I always wonder, wouldn't it be great if they could make paper out of that or something? You know,
Yeah,
it's
find a
just
use for it.
like it probably grows anywhere. Like you could probably grow it in a toxic waste dump. Probably be happy as can be. As long as I think it's one of those things. As long as it has access to sun and water, it'll grow no matter what.
Hmm.
And if we could use it to make like clothing or something, it's just it's such a sustainable crop, from that point of
Find some
view.
redeeming quality to it.
Yes. Or probably have you ever read that book, The Day of the Triffids? You know what I'm talking about?
I have
It's
not.
it's a sci-fi book where they develop a plant to extract oil from, and it solves the energy crisis. But if you get too close to it, it kills you and eats you. Uh, and there's a sort of an event that they're all and they can move. They're ambulatory, but they're tethered in place, right? So they can't move. So and they have this way of grabbing you, like a Venus flytrap sort of thing. But they cut that off. So they just sort of chained in place, and they've got their arms and legs cut off, and they just suck oil out of them and extract. But there's an event that happens where the entire human population is struck blind and they can't tend the triffids and their arms grow back and they break their chains and they got these giant plants wandering the countryside eating people all over the place. It sounds ridiculous. There's a movie they tried to make of this film back in the 50s. They just look like the special effects are so bad. They look like garbage bags wandering around the street. But it's a fantastic, what's the name of the author? I think I might even have it right here. I'm trying to force my kids to read it. John Wyndham. John Wyndham has written a lot of good sci-fi books that they usually make kids read in English classes in junior high and so on. Day of the Triffids. Excellent read, even if you're an adult. Um, anyway, I feel like if we found some useful way to use Japanese knotweed, it would probably evolve into Triffids and kill us all.
That and kudzu.
Yeah, kudzu. I got to look this up. Kudzu. I've never heard of this. Um, so another one is, I mean, there's different kinds of this, but I have a huge problem. One of the most problematic things in my garden is blackberries. I have them coming up everywhere where I don't want them. Um, is the blackberry native or is it non-native or is there varieties that are and aren't?
So there are native blackberries to North America. There's also European species, probably some Asian species as well. So I guess it would depend on like I tried looking beforehand, the ones that were intentionally cultivating to find out what species there were, and it wasn't really clear,
I
if
see.
they're the European or um, the North American species. I didn't go down too many rabbit holes, so I didn't find out
No.
exactly which one it is, but we do have native blackberries and other brambles, raspberries and stuff
Yes.
to North America.
Yes. I mean, we've got one I have. I think it's one that came out of the forest. It doesn't grow like, I mean, the ideal blackberry is it grows 5, 6 feet high, has big, fat, juicy blackberries on them, and you can use them to make blackberry jelly, and they're fantastic. And I've got these ones, they just crawl along the ground forever, and they make little seedy, useless, like the berries are the size of blueberries. They're clearly a blackberry because they got all those little segments, right?
Hmm.
But they're tiny and they travel underground and they go under my fence and they get like around the perimeter. I've got like, let's say I put down 2 feet of cardboard with wood chips over it to prevent like stuff from coming up. Well, it'll go right underneath that cardboard and pop up. It'll go 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet.
Hmm.
It's just like sometimes I wonder if it's finding its way in through mole tunnels, like using that hole to find its way in. But I find it to be it's like just an incredibly, in my previous garden I didn't have this problem, but an incredibly problematic. I mean, no one would say a blackberry is a weed, but I mean, weed's something. It's a plant you don't want, and I don't want it. I don't want
Yeah,
that particular variety anyway.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Weed is a plant you don't want. So yeah, we have people come into our offices asking, "Is this a weed or a plant?" It's like, well,
Do you want it?
it's weed is a plant. It's yeah. That's what I tell me. Do you want it? That's all. I mean, a weed to me may not be a weed to you, and vice versa. And like like you said, blackberries. If it's in the right spot, it's fine. But if it's not in that right spot, it becomes a weed.
Yeah, like I got another garden where I, I've always have raspberries trying to grow there, and I don't want raspberries there. And no matter how hard I try to keep raspberries out of it, it's probably a good place to plant raspberries, I guess. It seems to have the right conditions.
Mhm.
And here, I mean, I don't think there's any bad. I mean, I have these crappy wild blackberries, but I've never seen a wild raspberry I didn't like. Like wherever you are, you see raspberries, you eat them if they're ripe and they're good.
Mhm.
That's one of those things. I mean, a lot of these plants are things that you see growing. I mean, I'm on the Atlantic Ocean. You'll see these things growing up on beaches, high up on the beach. a lot of these wild plants. I wonder how much of this stuff just washes in off the sea and storms and stuff like that. Seeds floating around. Certainly, raspberries and blackberries, they are a, you know, uh, if you're going along a beach and you're walking along the edge, it's one of the things you can find. If you can make it through the blade grass and all these thorns and picks and God knows what else. Uh, um, is there anything on? So these are the things I had on my list. Is there anything you could think of that we haven't covered?
Yeah, some of the weeds I commonly see in my gardens, vegetable, ornamental, um, is common knotweed, which is a native. It's more of a prostate um, weed. It's fairly easy. It's got a kind of a slender taproot. It's fairly easy to pull out.
Hmm.
But it is a native species. But again, it's not where I want it. So it's a weed. Not all natives are good. At least in the landscape setting. Chickweed. There's multiple different types of chickweeds um, that we get in our gardens and landscapes. And this is a European species. Again, it's a fairly small plant. It's pretty easy to pull. Um, so I think it's more of an issue early in the spring. It's more of a winter annual
All right.
type.
I think I might have that one too, but yeah, you're right. It's not that big of a deal. It's manageable.
Uh, and then something like creeping Charlie, ground ivy. It's native to Europe and Asia. It's more of a turf weed, but it will get into ornamental beds and stuff. And that one, if you don't keep on top of it, uh, can be problematic. Can be kind of a pain to control. It's fairly easy to pull, but sometimes when it starts getting intertwined with other plants, because it's a vining type um, stolons and stuff. So it can become an issue um, as well at times. But again, it's relatively easy to control compared to some of these others we've talked about. Another one I've had issues with lately is box strawberry, Indian strawberry. So it looks leaves look similar to strawberry. It's got yellow flowers. The fruit um, are red. Somewhat resemble a strawberry. You wouldn't really confuse that if you had a strawberry right next to it. Again, kind of similar habitat. It's sending out runners and stuff like that. I think that is also an introduced species
Hmm.
um, as well.
What there's one I just thought of as well is the creeping buttercup. Do you have that? It's like you
Um,
have a buttercup, and then there's another buttercup, and there's another buttercup, and then another buttercup, and you see them in a straight line. And they got roots that just go right into almost like asparagus roots. You know, they go down and they really get in there. Creeping buttercup. I don't know if is a buttercup native?
I'm not sure on that one.
Yeah, that's fine. I didn't provide that. I just thought of that off the top of my head, so I'm putting you on the spot. That's no problem.
Yeah, creeping buttercup is not one. If we do have it, it's not an issue that I've
No one's
ever
worried
been
about it.
asked about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an annoying garden weed, I can tell you that. You got to be on it. How about we just talk a little bit before we let you go about your extension activity? So, what do you do at the university or is the University of Illinois Extension? I like to have teachers from university extensions. We don't have the same sort of thing here in Canada. We have some professors that do something like that, but it's not organized and institutionalized to the extent that you have in the United States. I think it's something we're really lacking here. So I never miss an opportunity to try to just inform people about, and it doesn't even matter. Like I'm not from Illinois, um, but I found you because I searched something. I was trying to, and I don't ask ChatGPT, and I usually, if I want to know something specific about a gardening thing, I type in what I'm looking at, and I type the word extension, and that's how I end up finding people like you, right? So I could type in garden weeds or, uh, you know, uh, invasive weeds extension. I guarantee if someone did that, somewhere in the top 10 hits, you'd probably get something by Ken Johnson on that topic. I'm pretty sure that's how I found you. Yeah. So I mean, what is the activity of a uh, university extension
Yeah,
agriculture?
so for me, I am quote unquote field based, so I'm not located on the campus of University of Illinois,
Oh,
which is in Urbana-Champaign. So I'm in Jacksonville, so I'm in West Central Illinois, about 2 hours from the campus. So we're what three-ish hours south of Chicago, about 2 hours north of St. Louis.
wow.
So for Illinois, so every state is going to do it a little bit differently. For extension. So in Illinois, we do it by units. So I cover 5 counties in West Central Illinois. Some states do single county. Illinois used to be like that. They reorganized to 2011 into the unit model. So I cover 5 counties. You mentioned with the podcast colleague Chris Enroth. He's up about an hour north of me. He's got 4 or 5 counties as well. And so I do horticulture. So in my office, basically, if it's not a corn or soybean question, it comes to me. So whether that's ornamental horticulture, vegetable gardening, we've got commercial tree fruit production, peaches and apples, in one of our counties, Calhoun County, is kind of famous in Illinois, at least central southern Illinois, for their peaches and stuff. So I do a little bit with that, ornamental, whether it's lawn, um, flowers, native plants,
Is your primary
all of
activity
that
just
stuff.
answering the questions of the public?
So it's, yeah, I answer questions public. We go out and do presentations to go to schools and stuff during the school year, do presentations on plants. Insects are more my thing. So I do plants and insects primarily for that stuff. We do presentations out in the community. For our unit, we do a garden day in the spring. So we have a Saturday where people come in. Again, we're fairly rural, so we don't have a big one, but some of the places that have bigger cities, they'll have a couple hundred people coming to these things. They'll have multiple speakers all day, half day
Hmm.
type events on various different horticultural topics and stuff. We've got the Master Gardener program. So these are people who have taken training, become Master Gardeners, and they go out and volunteer for the university. They'll do presentations, maintain gardens, or educate people in gardens and stuff. So myself and then the other horticulture educators in Illinois will train them, and then each unit's got volunteers that we kind of manage and oversee and stuff. So there's no day is the same. Every day is a little bit different. We had somebody donate about 3 acres of land to us. That
Wow.
we're starting to build out a garden and stuff, and we have
Nice.
kids. It's about a block or two from the YMCA in
Perfect.
Jacksonville, so they come down once a week and we do stuff
Oh,
out there with them.
I should ask you because my wife's a school teacher, and I mean I got my own ideas on this, but they have a space on their property where they want, to have a garden, that sort of thing. But the challenge is that school's over July 1st.
Hmm.
And like so just about anything they plant, uh, like it's what is it now? We're halfway through June. So unless they planted like spinach, like just like nothing grows. I mean, my spinach I planted in April is like 3 inches high right now, right? And you can't plant any earlier than April, and oftentimes in April the ground's frozen. So things really don't start growing here in any meaningful way until, oh, I don't know, end of May is when things start to really with I mean perennials like your rhubarb. Okay, yeah, I
Hmm.
got rhubarb. I can harvest my rhubarb. But these kids they want to grow something easy like beans. Well, they're not harvesting any beans anytime soon. Do you have any suggestions for a garden like that around a school where like the teachers, especially given the contentious relationship they have with the province in terms of their contract negotiations. They ain't going to the school in the middle of the summer to tend a garden for nothing. Um, and the kids aren't going. And there's probably the risk of kids going and kicking them in and stuff like that as well, I suppose. Um, So yeah, do you have any suggestions for a garden program for a school? I mean, they can. What usually happens is they grow beans in egg cartons and they take them home and they throw them away.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we have the same problem. So here, schools are getting out usually in May and stuff. So we can sometimes if you do like radishes or something, something that's going to germinate and grow. I mean, you got 20, 20 days or so, 30 days you can get a radish. So
Hmm.
a lot of times that's what, if somebody wants to do that and they can't do it during the summer, looking at radishes or doing it in the fall. So here in Illinois, next school year starts for my kids, they'll start in mid-August.
Right.
So we're looking at more of a fall garden
Hmm.
if they wanted to do that. But yeah, the problem is, yeah, you miss the bulk of the gardening season when your tomatoes and your peppers and all that stuff when you're planting that and those are coming in. If you were doing that, somebody'd have to maintain that, and then you could pick them in the fall. But a lot of times here, that in Illinois and in the United States, it usually falls to like the groundskeepers and stuff, and
Yeah.
they've got other things they want to do, and they don't want to go out and weed and water a garden and stuff. So
Yeah.
when I'm talking to teachers, usually if you want to do it in the spring, radishes, maybe some quicker lettuces or something like that. There's some peas that can be pretty quick turnaround that you can get started and then transplant out, or looking more at a fall garden, which is also kind of difficult because you're just starting the school year and stuff too. So
Yeah. And
yeah,
even
there's
here, like a fall
school
garden.
gardens are kind of tricky.
Yeah, we start getting frost in October sometimes, and I mean, I planted my peas first week of April, and they're just over a foot high. Um, my suggestion was that they plant potatoes in May. Um, and I mean, the way I grow potatoes is you stick them about 6 inches deep, and then you put a bunch of mulch on top of them so they don't, and they'll grow up through the mulch. And
Hmm.
so the idea was that they grow, so the potatoes should emerge before they're done school. So they'll see, like mine right now are a couple inches high. They've emerged through the mulch. So they'll see them growing, and then they go home for the summer, and the potatoes just grow and grow and grow, and all the action happens underground. And then they come back in September and dig up the treasure, right? And who doesn't like
Hmm.
potatoes? They could take them home to their parents and that sort of thing. And they have something real, like I mean, a radish is not a bad idea, though. Who likes radishes?
Yeah, no, not a lot of people. Yeah, so like here, our potatoes, they're already pretty much done blooming uh, and stuff, and
Now?
a lot of times a lot of times we're picking potatoes in July, August.
Huh.
I'm done with all my cool season stuff pretty much. I've got some peas still, but lettuce is getting close to bolting.
You're actually harvesting peas right now?
Yeah, we've been harvesting for a couple weeks for peas now.
Yeah, like mine are just like this high, and they're not going to flower for weeks. Like, they're not even
Yeah,
my
like
beans.
almost.
My beans just germinated, and if I planted them any earlier, they would have died.
Yeah, like our garlic. I picked scapes 2, 3 weeks ago.
Pick the scapes. I'm
Yeah,
nowhere near.
so
Yeah, I'm not in scape land yet. No, it's usually late May, or it's already later on. Yeah, I'm not
yeah. But I
scapes.
mean, garlic could be another good one again. Kids
Garlic
aren't
would
probably
be a
gonna be
good one.
terribly excited about getting a bulb of garlic,
Oh, and
but you could plant that in
also,
the fall, and then you probably have to pick a little bit earlier than you normally would, but you'd still
yeah,
have.
yeah, that's true. I mean, I usually harvest garlic here around early August. They're sort of
Yeah,
at
we're
their peak, and
we're
for you, it's
usually
probably early July.
yeah, end
Um,
of June, early July.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, maybe again, it's not an annual. Like a strawberry, if you have the June bearer, that would be something because they're still in school in June. But they'd only ever be planted once. Like the kids want to put a seed in the ground and see something. Um, anyway, yeah. So another idea I have was squash, right? Like a pumpkin or something like that. Pumpkins are great because they can take them home because there probably wouldn't be enough pumpkins for every kid, and then who gets the pumpkin? I could have a competition, I guess. Um, but that's one of those ones where you can just sort of let it go, and assuming you've got the right conditions, you will get pumpkins. They grow out of people's compost piles all the time, sort
Mhm.
of thing. They're a fairly low maintenance plant.
Yeah, we have a lot of problems with squash bugs, squash vine borer and stuff. So
Oh, do you?
if you the first year or two you grow them, you're usually okay as long as you keep up with the weeding. At least in my garden and a lot of people that come to the office, once you start growing them for 3, 4 years, then that stuff really starts moving in.
Oh,
And if you're not actively managing that stuff, they'll wipe out
no, no.
your pumpkins and stuff.
Let's see. All right. Well, I think we've covered that one. All right, Ken, it's been great having you on again. I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but Ken did an episode with us a while ago talking about ladybugs. That was a great conversation. Not only that, but ladybugs is the wrong word. Uh, Lady beetles is the
Yes,
correct
lady
word. Yes,
beetles.
that's right. And I kept saying ladybugs during the podcast. Um, anyway, if you want to, I'll put a link to that at the end of this as well. But if you want to learn more about ladybugs, it's a very interesting conversation because that is one of your areas of specialization is insects. So I'm sure we could have you on again if you're willing to talk about other insects in the garden. I was listening to a podcast you and your co-host did about mosquitoes. I found that I got black flies and mosquitoes and horse flies and deer flies and I got all these different fly seasons, right?
Mhm.
So we're on the edge. My wife noted I was getting dressed yesterday morning and she said, "Is that a deer fly on the window?" So there's no deer flies right now, but we're just about there at deer flies. Um, but yeah, great having you on. Kent, looking forward to hoping we can have you on again if you're willing. Everybody out there, I hope you found this interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my Substack articles at maritimegardening.substack.com. Check out Ken's podcast. I'll put a link to it in the description box. Other than that, until next time, everyone, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Ken, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Great.